Hey, it's Chuck. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome into the weekend show here at Chuck on Bucks. Thank you so much for joining me as always. I hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend. It is late Friday night here for me, and we were supposed to go live today at 6 p.m. for the Trey McNutt decision. We went live on Thursday for the Jarquez Carter decision. Big win for the Buckeyes. I think maybe bigger than we gave it credit for originally. And we're going to talk more about the defensive line coming up. That was an awesome live stream on Thursday. Ton of fun. We went for 2 hours. So we were going to go ahead and go live for the Trey McNutt decision on Friday at 6 p.m., even though we know we're not going to win that one. But just for fun, right? Because we're enjoying these lives. So that decision was canceled, and that was explained by Steve Wiltfong as having something to do with the Microsoft crash situation, delaying flights, and somebody who was supposed to be there, or multiple people who were supposed to be there with Trey, could not make it into town because their flights were postponed. So we did not go live at 6 p.m. That's been rescheduled for August 3rd. So I'm sorry if you were expecting that. I promise it wasn't me flaking on you. It was something to do with the Microsoft situation, if that's what we're to believe. I don't know. That didn't come out of Trey's mouth. That came out of Wiltfong's mouth. Trey did not say anything about it. He just retweeted Hayes Fawcett's tweet that said, Trey McNutt told me it'll be on August 3rd. So there is some speculation that this has nothing to do with the Microsoft crash, that maybe he's having second thoughts. And I saw some Buckeyes were excited by this. Does this mean the Buckeyes, maybe got him to slow down his decision? I don't think this has anything to do with Ohio State. And if it's not Microsoft related, I would say this has to do with Oregon and Texas A&M, and maybe he's struggling with his decision between the two of them, or maybe the guy who's not leading the pack found out he was going to the other guy and has, they're playing the game. The game that they're playing for a lot of guys anymore. And McNutt's been savvy this entire time with playing that kind of game. And, if that's the case, it wouldn't surprise me at all, because when we talk about Oregon and Texas A&M, these are two programs right now that are Mike Elko at Texas A&M in his first year has the 7th rated class. Difficult to do that when you're a brand new head coach coming from Duke. So I would say that A&M is pretty heavily involved in NIL this cycle, and we've seen them do that before. But I think they're swinging pretty hard for McNutt. My guess is maybe they gave him a little more to think about, because I do believe he prefers Oregon here, and I think Oregon was the pick on Friday. So we'll see what happens. It should be pretty exciting on August 3rd, even though we know it's not going to be the Buckeyes. But the Buckeye, I don't want to call them the beat. The guys that cover Buckeye recruiting, a couple of them, are pumping that if he gets this official visit, if they get him to come in the fall to Ohio State, that it'll change things maybe. I don't think that's the case. But I am seeing Matt Guerrieri catch a little heat here and there for not being able to keep a legacy from Ohio in the state, the number one safety. And I just think that's misplaced. I think Ohio State has done everything they could in this particular recruitment, and I just don't think it was ever going to happen for them, no matter how good they did. And I also don't think that the money is going to be there to go max deal on him, because you got Fahim Delane in the class already, who, I don't know, man. If I'm being honest, I'm taking Fahim Delane over McNutt anyway. I think he's a better safety. I think he's a better fit, and in all ways. And the safety class we have with Deshaun Stewart, Cody Haddad, and Fahim Delane looking pretty doggone solid. Messiah Delhomme makes his decision in August. You could add 4 guys into that class, that safety class, and it would be looking very, very nice. So, we can still go live on August 3rd if we want to, just for the heck of it, and we just might. We have listened for a while now about all the negative things about Will Howard. You can't really escape it. All the reasons why he's not good. His stats are just like McCord. He rates 77 out of 93 quarterbacks last year for passes of more than 20 yards downfield. I talked to a coach who was at practice in the spring who was not really terribly impressed with either Devin or Will. Incredibly impressed with Julian, by the way. But he did say that Will's arm strength outside the numbers downfield was going to not make the wide receivers happy. That's kind of how he worded it. And when you hear this kind of stuff enough about what somebody can't do, a little doubt starts to creep in. A little background. I always rooted for Kansas State. Kansas State, when I was younger, I picked a team in each conference. And Kansas State, I rooted for in the Big 12. I loved Bill Snyder. I loved the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. Everything about it just was cool to me. They did it with guys that were less talented, and they did it through fundamentals and just everything about it. I like the uniforms. I got a pair of pants over here, a pair of Kansas State pants. I just like Kansas State. So I tuned in and I saw Will Howard play several times. Every time I came away thinking, they got another Colin Klein. I really liked him. But when you're watching somebody else's team, you don't notice the warts as much. You notice the good plays. And he had a lot, for sure. And he could run, and he was big and powerful, and I liked him. But when you look in a little deeper, you do see some things in his game that, could be better. And I think that after hearing this a lot, his stats look just like McCord's. You downgraded. A little doubt might have crept in to a lot of Buckeyes. I kind of saw a lot of people go through the same kind of arc that I went through, feeling really confident about it at first, looking in a little further, and then maybe feeling a little bit of doubt. Did we make the right choice here? Was this the right guy? I think we felt the same thing from the guys that cover the team. If you were watching the reports throughout spring, as they came out, it definitely seemed like the reports about Will Howard were less than stellar, because just like with JJ Smith, we talked about the other day, how you can just feel the shift in energy when these guys talk about JJ Smith, the guys that get to go to practice, that get to see that stuff, that it's just different. I just felt like you could feel from them that they were not overly impressed with Will Howard, less than overwhelmed. We'll put it that way. A lot of jokes from the opponents about running Kyle McCord out of town only to get a worse version of Kyle McCord. Articles about the big question at quarterback for Ohio State, or it's a great team outside of the big question mark at quarterback, and the offensive line, of course. Offensive line, I think is going to be awesome this year. Maybe not awesome, but much improved. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm feeling extremely confident about Will Howard. I think that he is just the right guy to lead this offense under this coaching staff. And I think this offense is going to come out absolutely humming. And I've got some reasons why. Camp takes away a huge benefit that Will Howard has, and that's being able to soften up the defense with his running ability. All the intangibles that Will Howard brings, those things don't show up in things like spring practice. All the things that I admired about him, watching him at Kansas State, the command he had of that team, the leadership, all those things don't come up in spring practice when you first walk in to a brand new team in a brand new city with a brand new offense, and an offense that was still, evolving. You just had Chip Kelly in there. Remember, he committed to the Buckeyes when Bill O'Brien was on board. So a whole lot of change took place from the time Will got here to entering into training camp. Things have been flipped on their head, really. But I look back at Georgia's national championship team in 2021, led by Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is a guy that I really admired, a guy that was a walk-on, didn't really have a ton of natural ability, but just had that leadership, had that gusto, the bravado. I mean, the dude was an excellent ball player. He did a lot better in 2022 as a quarterback, but in 2021, when Georgia won that first national championship, that's the year they had the amazing defense. I think we have an amazing defense. Stetson Bennett had a 64% completion percentage, which is not fantastic. he only threw for 2,800 yards, another 260 on the ground. So 3,000 yards total. That's what Will Howard did last year. Now, what kind of points can you put up on 2,800 yards passing in a season and 260 rushing yards, whatever he had? I was surprised when I look back at their point totals in that national championship year in 2021. The offense was a lot better than I remembered going through that season. So if Will Howard accounts for 3,000 yards like Stetson Bennett did, Georgia scored game by game 56, 40, 62, 37, 34, 30, 34, 43, 41, 56, 45, 24, 34, 33. The only game they had a very poor offensive game was against Clemson that year, where they scored 10 points. Other than that, that's a very high-scoring team with a quarterback who accounted for just 3,000 yards. That averaged out to 250 passing yards a game and 190 rushing yards a game. Is that doable for this Ohio State offense with Will Howard run the show? 250 passing, 190 rushing. Because those point totals, those are going to win us every single game. I don't even think you need all that. So if Stetson Bennett in 2021 is the model here, that's all we need out of Will Howard, 250 yards a game. That's it. And that's going to put up a boatload of points. We definitely have better skill players all the way around than that Georgia team did in 2021. They have a better offensive line. But again, I think this offensive line for the Buckeyes this year is going to look much improved. Chip Kelly has a lot to do with that. 1 year more of maturity, growth, physical strength has a lot to do with all that. I'm getting really excited about this. And I think that Will might be just what we needed, and Ryan Day knew it all along. We're moving away from a finesse-style offense and getting back into more of a balanced offense that can actually run the football. Nothing was as obnoxious as watching this offense the last couple of years. They couldn't run the football. And marrying Chip Kelly and Ryan Day as they reunite with Will Howard at quarterback has got me feeling really excited. And I've come kind of full circle from really high to kind of feeling a little pessimistic to all the way back up. And I don't discount Devin Brown at all. I think that Devin could absolutely come in and keep it rolling. But I'm very excited now. I'm getting very excited for Will Howard in a way that I didn't think I would be a couple of months ago. The offensive line as well. So can't wait, guys. We are almost there. My boy Dago said yesterday on the live stream, 5 Saturdays away, which I didn't even realize. When you put it that way, it does not sound much longer. SEC Media Days was this week, and I found out that they are renaming Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, not the stadium, but they're naming it Nick Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and that's a mouthful. Bryant, of course, for Paul Bear Bryant, thought to be one of the greatest coaches in the history of college football. And then 24 years later, Alabama lucks into Nick Saban. I mean, that is quite a stroke of luck to have two of the greatest coaches ever. But, you know, it is what it is. They're lucky down there. But it got me thinking about a couple of names, and I'm very happy, stadium names, that our stadium is named Ohio Stadium. Because when you look at some of these, Beaver Stadium, Penn State Stadium, not named after a beaver, named after a politician, former governor of Pennsylvania from 1887. Florida State plays at the Doak, which sounds kind of cool, named after Doak Campbell, president of Florida State when it was the women's school. He oversaw allowing boys to come in. Texas A&M plays at Kyle Field, named after Edwin Kyle, a graduate of Texas A&M and the professor of horticulture. They get down on horticulture down there at A&M. Florida plays at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Ben Hill Griffin was a citrus producer. Good thing Steve Spurrier came up with the Swamp, much better name. Whole lot of places called Memorial Stadium, which is really cool because they usually have cool memorials. Oregon, Autzen Stadium. Autzen was a lumberman. He helped usher in the age of plywood in 1967. We say go Bucks. They say SCO Ducks. I still don't know what that means. SCOOO, SCO Ducks. Maybe they can explain it to us in the comments. Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. Sanford Stadium is where Georgia plays. I did not know that was Dooley Field until I just was looking this up. Obviously, always knew it was Sanford, but Vince Dooley, obviously a legendary coach of the Dogs. So Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium, Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, Ohio Stadium. We win. But speaking of stadiums, the Buckeyes have obviously one of the most exciting seasons that most of us can remember. I've heard it from a lot of you guys. I feel the same way. Entering this season with everything we went through, ending last year, very down, and then just kind of ramped up almost immediately after the national championship game, started 2 minutes after with Quinshon Judkins tweeting that he was coming to Ohio State, and just ramped up with nothing but good news the entire offseason up into this point with the new playoff system, with the new teams coming in. It's the most exciting season I can ever remember. And, you know, we're not the only ones who feel that way, but it looks like the Buckeyes have sold the most season tickets that they have in 15 years. And that's with the home slate that is not particularly great this year. The home slate this year Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Iowa, Nebraska, Purdue, Indiana, and Michigan. Now, Iowa and Nebraska, okay. I can get down with those two games. I think I would prefer to go to the Iowa game. I think most people would prefer to go to the Nebraska game. But I think that Iowa game might be a little more competitive. And obviously, the game I would go to this year for sure, but I'm not, because we're going to be doing not just a post-game show here, but we are going to be doing during the game, at some point during every game, members-only stream. And you can join that membership on a PC, early access to videos and a lot of other stuff. I've got the list there of what the benefits are to joining. It's $5 a month. Feel free to join, and we'll definitely be doing those streams during games this year. The after game live show will be to everybody. For the post game live show, we'll be doing that every single game right here, where we can come either decompress with bad news, which I don't think will be the case one single time this year, or celebrate the good news, go over all the stats and everything we do while we party a win. We're going to do that every single game right here at Chuck on Bucks. All right, so Will Conroy drops his top 5 this week, and the Buckeyes were not in there. Now, a simple Google search, if you type in Will Conroy, St. Ignatius, and click that little video button, like I did the other day, revealed to me that outside of Will Conroy's huddle tape and some random basketball player named Will Conroy, the entire Will Conroy catalog on the internet are segments from Chuck on Bucks. So I'm the foremost expert in the entire world on Will Conroy, apparently. And if you're not familiar with Will Conroy, he is a beast of an interior lineman who will play center in college because he's a little shorter, 6'3", 280. Of course, he could still grow. And he's at St. Ignatius in Cleveland. LaCharles Bentley, his offensive line coach, LaCharles Bentley, a St. Ignatius guy. Will's heading into his junior year, so he's a class of 2026 guy. Currently a 3-star, which means absolutely nothing at this point in the cycle, as he's not been to any of the camps yet. And when they see him, he'll be probably a high 4-star at some point before he ends up in college. This dude's legit, absolutely legit. And he is one of the guys that I've been referring to as the Ohio 4, which is the 4 linemen in Ohio for the class of 2026. Maxwell Riley, Sam Greer at Hoban, Maxwell Riley's at Avon, Adam Guthrie at Miami Trace, and Will Conroy at St. Ignatius. Maxwell Riley is 6'5.5". He's a 5-star, but his dad's 6'8". He may grow into full-size tackle. Sam Greer already 6'8", 290. He's at Hoban. He's a stud. Had some injury issues, has not yet played a full season of high school football. So going to be interesting to see what happens with him this year. And Will Conroy, 6'3", 280 at St. Ignatius. Adam Guthrie, 6'7", 270. All those guys have been offered except for Adam Guthrie. Adam Guthrie was told that they wanted to see his junior film first. So Guthrie knows that going into the season, that he's got to put it on tape. They're not ready to offer him. Now, Conroy was offered in January. His film's great against very high-level competition, including Hoban, him and Sam Group. As a matter of fact, in his film, and we'll watch some of it, you can see Eli Lee lined up, which is awesome, and Rock Hill at Hoban, because they're playing against Hoban in a couple of those, and a couple of the highlights on his film. And Conroy he's a stud. He really is. He's a really good football player. Definitely not going to be a 3-star. And I've heard some people this week kind of dismiss him by saying he's, we're going after bigger fish. Now, we've talked a lot about Justin Fry's strategy in 2025, the small net strategy that he started with, which is he's, preferred in his career to go after a limited number of guys and create a stronger relationship. And he thinks that's the way to go. Well, he saw that in the class of 2025, that wasn't working for him. So he then pivoted from that strategy and threw out a flurry of offers, and it didn't go great. It did not go great with that. However, we still may end up with an excellent class. He did lock down Carter Lowe. This is not a bash fry fest here. I'm just talking about the class of 2026. He locked down Carter Lowe from Toledo Whitmer, who is not just a really good tackle right now, but appears to be rapidly improving every time we see him. And I mean, if he had another year at the end of his senior season, this dude's going to be a 5-star. I'm totally convinced of it, because from the time we saw him at the end of last year on his high school film till the rivals camp, just the way he moved, the technique, everything about it, a definite big improvement. And I'm really excited to watch his senior tape. In addition, you got Jake Cook. Jake Cook's going to be the center. That's fantastic. Jake Cook, the best story of the cycle. We absolutely love Jake here, and I think he's going to be one heck of a lineman. And then, of course, we got David Sanders. August 17th makes his decision. David Sanders, we all know, is the number 1 lineman in the country, and I think he's leaning Buckeyes. And if we can get David Sanders in the class, it doesn't really matter what else we do. It's a fantastic class. But if we don't, you're still going after Javon McFadden. Javon McFadden is a lineman out of Maryland. He's an interior lineman, 3-star guy, bit of a road grader. He is down to Maryland, Colorado, and Ohio State. It was thought, and he said that he was going to be making his decision in the fall, but recently Mick Walker of Letterman Row said that Javon McFadden told him he was going to be making it before the season. So we might find out sooner than we thought about Javon McFadden. Now, if Sanders chooses to go to Tennessee or somewhere else, then you're looking at Carter Lowe, hopefully Javon McFadden and Jake Cook. You're going to want somebody else. Now, the reason that the Buckeyes, it was thought, were going after maybe lower numbers this year of offensive linemen is because of this excellent class in Ohio for 2026. So when that list came out this week that Will Conroy did not have Ohio State on or Oregon, and we talked a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, that Steve Wiltfong had crystal balled Will Conroy to Oregon. Well, Will Conroy told Steve Wiltfong the same thing he told Bill Kurelic, and I read what he told Bill Kurelic, which was nothing that you could get a crystal ball out of unless you were just someone who wanted to make some news and speculate. He did not have any extra intel that Bill Kurelic had. he was just saying, I have a gut feeling, essentially. And that's, something that I'm going to log for the next time that guy puts out another crystal ball. He did not used to operate like that at 247. I don't think. I feel like ever since he moved on 3, he's a little more, he's using these to sensationalize things a little bit. And when we talk about those crystal balls and how much you can trust them, I've talked to some players. Matter of fact, I talked to Trey McNutt when he got one from one of the Ohio State guys like 3 months ago, because I just want to know like what they're basing that on when they put that out there, so that I know how much credence to put in it when they come out. And the truth is, each guy is different. Max Torres at Scoop Duck, this guy's very, very cautious. Bill Kurlick at Bucknuts, very, very cautious. Some people are not as cautious. And like in that one McNutt's instance, he had never even talked to the guy that put that crystal ball out to Ohio State for him at that point. So it just depends on the guy. But Wiltfong had no more information than Kurlick had when he put out that crystal ball for Will Conroy to Oregon. All right, so some people were saying something's fishy. He was crystal balled to Oregon, and he doesn't even put them on his top 5. Well, the crystal ball had nothing to do with anything. He just said that he had visited Oregon twice, and he liked it. Why were they not on there? Not quite sure. But the argument goes like this. Ohio State wasn't in his top 5. Probably what happened was Ohio State's not really interested, or his offer was not committable yet. That's not the case. I'm quite certain that's not the case. How do we know that's not the case? Well, Adam Guthrie did not get an offer, and he didn't get an offer because if you offer an Ohio guy, you better be prepared to take the commitment. Adam Guthrie was told, no, we're not going to give you an offer yet. We're going to need to watch your junior film. Will Conroy already had his offer. Will Conroy's offer is certainly committable. So why did Will Conroy leave Ohio State off that top 5 list? I talked to Will Conroy, and Will Conroy doesn't seem to, in my opinion, just reading between the lines here, feel like he's been pursued quite as hard by Ohio State as these other schools. That's what I gathered from the conversation. So if that's the case, does that mean A, he's not being valued as much by the Ohio State staff, or B, were they just not prepared for him to make a decision as quick as he's doing? Like he wants to, clearly it looks like, accelerate the process. So did they get caught slipping? Did they not quite know what he wants? Recruiting is different for every kid, just like discipline. Some need a kick in the butt. Some need a pat on the back. Recruiting is the same thing, man. Some of them want a lot of attention from a lot of people on the staff. Some of them, think of a guy like Bo Jackson, probably doesn't want all that. You know what I mean? Everybody wants something different. And it seems like Will Conroy wants to feel the love, wants to feel prioritized. And I don't know that he felt that way at Ohio State. Maybe he didn't feel that way at Oregon. What it doesn't mean is that Ohio State doesn't prioritize him. They definitely do. They definitely want him. And again, the reason they're going light on numbers in 2025 is because they've got a ready-made offensive line right here in Ohio in 2026. Also in on guys like Champ Smith from Vero Beach, who's very high in Ohio State, top 100 overall guy. Darius Gray from Maryland. That's an interior guy, very good offensive lineman. Maybe top 200 guy and a pretty high-rated 4-star. He likes Ohio State. He came to camp and handled Jakeem Stewart in like 5 straight reps in a camp this summer. That's when he earned his offer. So they're very high on him. But this guy's no gimme. Alabama, Georgia, they're both in on him. You got the big game guys, Ahianachu, and the big kid out of New Mexico, Cantrell. Those are the 2 top guys in the class. So those are the David Sanders of next year's class. We're in on them as well. Ahianachu came up and camped, looked great, likes Ohio State. But the point is, you're going to have to get at least 5-6 guys next year's class. You got 4 in Ohio. You really want Will Conroy. Does him not having Ohio State on his list present an issue? You certainly don't want to let any of these 4 guys out of the state. The Buckeyes definitely want them. The good news is I think there's plenty of time to repair this relationship with Conroy. The Buckeyes are certainly going after him and make him feel prioritized. Yes, we do, in fact, really value you. Maybe we just didn't realize you wanted to go through this process as fast as you do. But it sounds to me like he wants to get it wrapped up out of the way. And that's cool. I love that. Get his commitment, get him in the class, check one off the list. But you can't let him get out of the state. And you really can't let him get out of the state because you've had some issues getting some guys in 2025. And the problem is, it looks like the same mistake for now is being repeated in 2026 as it was in 25. I've got the offer numbers. Now, we talked about the offer numbers last year, this cycle, 2025. Ohio State, basically half the offers of Alabama and Georgia, the small net strategy, until Justin Fry went and threw out that second round of offers that looked like panic offers, where he had 3 separate assistant coaches around the country meeting and talking to guys. He himself went down to Georgia to go offer Andrew Stargell. Andrew Stargell, I mean, that's a whole nother ball of wax there. You pigeonholed Jake Cook into playing center. Stargell could only play center. And you put all that time into Stargell, got him up for an official. You took Jake Cook. Jake Cook, 6'5", he can play guard. Stargell, 6'3", can only play center, but you had to make it a one or the other. I don't know why they did that. Jake Cook can play guard. You could have taken them both, in my opinion, but you chose not to. So you chose not to, which put more pressure on 2026. And that puts more pressure on landing guys like Will Conroy. But in 2026, we currently have 15 offers out to offensive linemen. Alabama has 31. Georgia has 39. Michigan has 29. Penn State has 51, but they just offer everybody. The point is, we're still at half the offers or less than half the offers of our competition. So you see my point. We'll see. The good news with Conroy is, grew up a Buckeye fan. I definitely think there's time to turn it around, and you're going to have to, because Sam Greer is very interested in Michigan as well, and Missouri, by the way. So that's the offensive line report. So the EA Sports College football game has been all the rage, obviously, and I have played now 2 games. I got 2 full games in. I played as the Buckeyes in Oregon, and the setting was not the easiest setting, and I got absolutely destroyed. Then my son dropped it down and said, play at home. I did. It was much easier. So we played Buckeyes at home, and I whooped them. I beat Oregon. It was on the easiest setting. It was a lot of fun on the easiest setting, not good on the next one up. I wore the red pants, white jersey, standard helmet, and we looked like the Kansas City Chiefs out there. It's a really bad look. I don't recommend doing that. But there was an article that came out in The Athletic that featured some current coaches who were in the game previously, and James Laurinaitis was kind of the headliner. It starts with, Laurinaitis has bragging rights for life, as the 3-time All-American was the number 1 rated player in NCAA football 09, entering his senior year with a 99 overall, and fellow linebacker and future Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman was a 96 overall. Laurinaitis says, when I was in middle school, I would always use Minnesota State and have them going to the Big Ten. I created these purple and gold unis, and then I would create myself, usually a quarterback, 6'5", run as fast as you can, throw far and accurate, went on a Heisman campaign. When you're younger, that's how I learned all the school fight songs, and I still remember them like that to this day. When I got to college and I was in the game, I just played as Ohio State. I remember Marcus Freeman being really salty in 07 and 08, our junior and senior years, because I was ranked higher than him. That really bothered him. Marcus was terrible at the game, all right? I'm just going to put that out there. I used to whip him probably 90% of the time. We always loved to compete. Then he goes on to talk about the NFL and playing Madden. And when somebody got skunked like 21-0, it was total shame. The most trash talk ever, more than at practice, came from Madden. And people would be so salty they wouldn't talk for 2 days. Michigan coach Sherrone Moore, who played at Oklahoma for 1 year and was in the game, makes sure to put in this article, ironically, I did play as Michigan a lot just because I loved the helmet. Sure, buddy. And Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein says when we go on the recruiting trail, every kid's favorite team is Oregon. A lot of it is due to the uniforms and the stadium and Nike. Now it's going to be a great recruiting tool for us, as every little kid in America is going to be playing with the Ducks. Young people do love the uniform stuff. They definitely love the Nike stuff. And Oregon's got that going for them. Now, Oregon came out with the new uniform. I threw it up on the live stream yesterday. And here is that, before we look at the new uniform, here's Trey McNutt in Oregon's current all Kelly green uniform. So this is what the current one looks like. You can see the font of that 8. I can't stand it. And here's the new one. They got rid of that font. Instead of this more neon yellow, they went with the more traditional. This is closer to their traditional yellow that they used to use. And they incorporated a lot more of it. They got rid of that stupid font and they put the duck on here. I love these. I think this looks excellent. Absolutely excellent. And Notre Dame rolled out with a new uni. And the Irish put this gold ND on the sleeve, which I really like. I think that this is new here, that they outlined the 24, the font of these numbers, with this bright gold too. And you can still see that they're wearing the mustard pants, which I don't know why they did this. You know, back in the day, the pants looked more gold, and now they look mustard, which is crazy because they went with this real looking gold looking helmet in like 2014. And that's when they changed the pants to not match the helmet. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Mustard and gold don't go. While I've got these loaded up, might as well look. This is Florida's all orange, which I really like. And SC, always a traditional beauty. A&M, another traditional. The A&M all whites, pretty good look, I think. Pretty good look. Big Ten Media Days coming up, and I'm pretty pumped up for it. There's not a ton going on, and it's going to provide some decent content for us to listen to. SEC Media Days just wrapped, and it had a lot of good nuggets from it, but we'll go over that in a sec. Big Ten Media Days, I'm really excited to hear from Ryan Day and the Buckeye contingent, which is going to be Jack Sawyer, Emeka Ibuka, and Denzel Burke. I'm excited to hear from the new members of the Big Ten, Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning, Jed Fish at Washington. Jed Fish is an interesting cat, and he has gone into Washington, and they have the 17th ranked recruiting class, which is pretty incredible. Kalen DeBoer, when he was there, 2 classes ranked in the 40s. So Jed Fish really humming, and he did at Arizona too. And that's interesting. And when you look at the Big Ten, the classes right now, we're looking at Oregon, Ohio State right at the top in the other order, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, and then Washington right there at number 5. So that's pretty impressive. They're beating out USC, but I also want to hear Kurt Signetti, Indiana. Indiana is doing really good. They're in the top 50, which is great for Indiana. This dude called out Ohio State and Michigan in his very first press conference, which I love about him. It's Indiana. Let them have their fun. Iowa and Kirk Ferentz, curious to hear what he has to say. Curious to see what they're going to look like. That defense is going to be really good. Again, they return a bunch of their stud linebackers they had last year. And I was looking the other day at this list that we looked at last week. And it is guys that what schools they come from in the NFL. So most active NFL players. You got Alabama at the top, and then Ohio State, number 2. LSU, then Michigan, number 4. Georgia, number 5. But if you look down there at number 13 on the board, 13th in all of college football is Iowa. And I just have a hard time believing. They're above Texas, for crying out loud. They're above Tennessee. How can you not sell your program if you're Iowa in the NIL era? I mean, I don't care where you're located. In the NIL era, with those kind of numbers of guys you put into the NFL, and successful NFL players too, I don't know how you can't sell that program and have a consistent contender. It's better than Texas, better than Tennessee. It's mind-blowing, and I think they need to turn the page from Kirk Ferentz. As much of a legend as he is, I think that they could actually have a playoff team every couple of 2-3 years if they really had a coach come in there that was young and aggressive and ready to go out and get some dudes. They just need a couple offensive dudes. The defense, always sound, always legit. But looking forward to Big Ten Media Days. And we got a couple of, I wanted to go over the Big Ten, where they stack up. So right now, you got, after Washington, Rutgers, Wisconsin, then USC. USC is in 8th in the Big Ten in recruiting after starting off with that big bang. And that makes me smile, guys. I think Lincoln Riley is such a smug jerk, and I cannot stand him. And I really want to see him fail really hard. And there is a lot of talk that, maybe this year, if he fails hard and fails to turn that defense around, they might go ahead and can him. I don't think they'll do that, but it'll be enjoyable to see nonetheless. And I wish they were on our schedule this year. You know what? Now that I think about it, I just brought up the 2008 season the other day when we went out there and lost to them. I really wish they were on our schedule this season, but they're not. Anyway, so SEC Media Days was last week, and Steve Sarkisian looked like an orange. I've got to find this picture for you guys. There we go. Okay, why is he so orange? And why do coaches insist on wearing these colored blazers, the theme of their team? That looks ridiculous. That's just horrible. Look at this class, subtlety. Look at this. How handsome, beautiful, fantastic. I love it. Oh, hey, yo. Never mind. They got to knock that off. That's just a terrible look. Anyway, last year when we played Mizzou, I think a lot of Buckeye fans kind of were introduced to Eli Drinkwicz and his personality, the head coach of Missouri, who is he's kind of a clown, man. He likes to joke around. He was on the set he was on ESPN doing an interview, pulled out his phone and said, "Oh, hold on, it's Connor Stalions. Connor Stalions calling. I got to take this. I need to get these plays." Talking about Ohio State. So calling them out blatantly, and I really love that. And just got a big personality. I really like him. I wish him success. He had a really poor couple of years, and then last year had a great year. A lot of people are picking them to go to the playoffs, and they got an easy schedule. They just might do it. But he came out in his speech at the SEC Media Days, and he opened it up by talking about Mike Leach. Mike Leach, not eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame because he has a 596 winning percentage instead of a 600, which is the minimum. And that's ridiculous. Everybody agrees it's ridiculous. Mike Leach and parts of Mike Leach's offense are just about in every offense in college football. And when you contribute something like that much to the game and everything else that he has and are just as beloved as a character and a figure, these silly rules, give him an exception. It's ridiculous. So Eli took his time to talk about that. I respect the heck out of him for that. And, love to see it. And I'm rooting for that guy's success. I really like him a lot. Brian Kelly talked about his defensive failures, and he addressed those on his football team by hiring away Eli Drinkwitz's defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. You can do that when you're LSU and you got LSU money, and the guy works at Missouri. Missouri coming up, though. Eli Drinkwitz and the Missouri Tigers doing well in recruiting. They beat us for Henry Fanuku. That wasn't great. But we'll see if LSU can if Blake Baker can pull a stopgap job like Jim Knowles was able to do in year one at Ohio State, just kind of immediately make it better. Not great, but better. I think he might be able to. And if he can, I think that offense is going to be really good under Nussmeier. Not anything like last year, but good enough to compete and potentially go 10-2. And if they do, they would be a dangerous playoff team, I think. This is the number one linebacker in Georgia. The number one linebacker in the country signed with Georgia. Their number one recruit, obviously a 5-star, and their 5 stars don't look like our 5 stars. Anyway, Steve Sarkisian had to answer questions about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, which I can't believe we're here after Quinn Ewers led them to the playoff last year. But this is what it is, man. This is what it is when it comes to a kid with the Manning name who came out with that kind of pedigree. He had a great spring game. That's about the extent of what this guy's done. I do think he's going to be good now. I was kind of hoping that he wasn't going to live up to the hype because I did feel like he was probably just getting overrated because of his name at that rinky-dink little school that they all play at in New Orleans. But it appears that he's the real deal, just based on his stature, his pedigree. Obviously, his old man was a great athlete, awesome wide receiver. Ended up he had to quit playing football because he hurt his neck. But it is what it is. The kid's going to be good, I think. But Quinn Ewers is the dude, man. He's the dude. Called Michigan the team up north, which I absolutely loved hearing him say. That was a little shout out to us. And it has come up recently. Some folks, and somebody asked me in the comments who I'm going to root for, Texas or Michigan, based on them being, a Big Ten SEC matchup. And I used to, during the BCS days, when strength of schedule was so important because it was only 2 teams, you kind of had to root for your Big Ten conference foes in the out of conference, because when you beat them, you needed their strength of schedule to be as good as it possibly could. When we got to 4 teams, you didn't need to do that so much anymore. You pretty much still had to run the table, but we could usually get away with 1 loss and still get in. But now that we're at a 12-team playoff, I don't think it's necessary ever to do that. And as far as doing it for conference pride, when Alabama goes up to Wisconsin this year, I'll definitely be rooting for Wisconsin. No doubt about it. When Auburn came up to Penn State a couple years ago, absolutely, I was rooting for Penn State. In the bowl games, I root for the Big Ten teams. I will never root for Michigan based on Big Ten pride or strength of schedule for us. Absolutely not. No chance. Quinn Ewers in the horns all the way, babe. Like, no chance in heck am I rooting for Michigan. I would love to talk to any of you who disagree with me on that, because I want to know how you can possibly stomach it. Like, I get the logic behind it. I just don't think the logic applies anymore in the 12-team playoff. If you lose 2 games in your Ohio State, you're getting in the playoff. So if you lose 3 games, you got a chance of getting in the playoffs if the teams you play have a really strong strength of schedule. So, I mean, I can see it at that point, but how bad do you want to be in the playoffs if you lose 3 games? If we lose 3 games, we're not a very good team, and I don't think we're making any noise in the playoff anyway. So I don't know if I even want to be in the playoff. I want to go address the problems that we have, because we clearly have problems if we're losing 3 games. Lane Kiffin talked. He repeatedly referenced the transfer portal as free agency in response to a question about a linebacker that he got from Arkansas. He said free agency, when he became available in free agency, we already knew about him. Then when he talked about losing Quinshawn, he said it's free agency, so we wish him the best. Kirby, obviously still the star of the show, and he revealed that for over a year, the Georgia NIL Collective has been withholding money. He said fining, but the NIL Collective president came out and said, careful to say, we're not fining them. We're withholding money because they're not employees, so we cannot fine them. Kirby said fining. He said withholding. They are withholding money from the players for getting tickets or getting arrested, any of the traffic violation stuff. And their logic behind it is NIL, name, image, and likeness, is tied to how the public perceives you. And if you get arrested or, get dinged or have trouble with the law, and that gets out, then the public value your name, image, and likeness is worth less. And it makes perfect sense. And I think it is a good start, though it's been going on a year and it's clearly not worked. As far as the driving stuff goes, a lot of people have bagged on Kirby since this came out as kind of outsourcing the punishment. Yeah, I think it's a start, but he did say that one of the guys got kicked off the team. I think the most recent driving incident with that guy probably was a little piece of why he got kicked off the team. But it seems that he's finally starting to get a little more heat and maybe turning up the discipline in that aspect. I don't know. We'll see what it is, but I'm done talking about it. It's I've said my piece on it. I think that it was a total failure of leadership by Kirby to let this go on as long as he did, and I just hope that they get it cleaned up. Never mind. I'm going to say one more thing. So the argument that these are just traffic violations, and if you just look at these small incidents, they're not. We're talking about arrests. Like, that's totally different than a traffic violation when you get arrested. Nonetheless, getting arrested for racing, not a huge deal in and of itself. But the folks that say that they don't feel like it really should be the coach's business or the coach's responsibility because it's outside the program, here's what I would say. There have been many times throughout this, since he's been there, where I am quite certain he has told them how serious he takes this as the coach of the team and to knock it off over and over and over again. In fact, he said 162 times he has written down when he has talked to the team about this. 162 times. At that point, if your player or employee or anybody, it could be any instance, and you are the leader of an organization, even if it's off school grounds or off work grounds, and they continue to do that, what they're doing is bringing heat on you, on your program. So when you tell them, listen, I'm no longer taking this as just a traffic ticket. This is blatant disrespect for our program. For me personally, you are now bringing crap to my program. That's the difference for me. That's when it crosses over. So I've been in this situation at work, to be quite honest. So with the commitment of defensive tackle Jarquez Carter the other day, the Buckeyes now have 6 defensive linemen in the class. If we start at the top left, I think we can say almost for sure they're going to add another wide receiver. We're at 24 right now, so that would be 25. I think definitely 2 linemen. That's 27. And that's the only thing I think I can say for sure. So let's say 27 at minimum. But if it pushes up to 30, there's a lot of folks who are saying they don't like the idea of taking a 27, 28, 30-man class because when we go into 2025, the team is going to be such a very young team that you're going to want guys who are ready to play now. So let's not take a big class here. Go heavy in the portal heading into that year with guys that are ready to go. Well, I looked through the roster. Let's start with this. Last year, we had 25 transfers out. And I think that we can assume probably pretty similar every year, I think. I don't know any reason why that would go down. But let's say it does. Let's say it's 20. All right, so you're losing 20 guys there. You got 14 seniors going out. That's 34 right there. I believe we still have 2 open roster spots. That's 36. And now we got to factor in the guys that leave early for the NFL draft. Let's say 4. That's 40. So even if you take a 30-man class, you still now out of necessity have to get 10 guys out of the portal. That's with 20 transfers, so 5 less transfers, and 4 guys going to the NFL draft early. So you can take that 30-man class, and you're still going to need 10 guys out of the transfer portal. And let's say they get to 28. Now we're talking still a dozen guys that got to come in out of the portal. They can be ready to go guys. And I think that you get the best of both worlds. You get to load up on a big class. And what I love about this class, and on the defensive line in particular, I think it shows us in past years, guys like maybe a Jarquez Carter or a Maxwell Roy, they would have waited on while they went after the guy like Malik Autry and waited till the end, and Malik Autry would say no or go somewhere else. And then they would try to go get in or flip the Maxwell Roy or the Jarquez Carter and couldn't get him to do it. and then they'd just be short on numbers. Instead of that, they've taken the philosophy now that we are going to take these guys first and continue to do our big game hunting, so to speak. The reason they didn't do it in the past is because they didn't want to bring in extra numbers if they didn't have to. Well, when you had to, at the end, you got caught with your pants down and you couldn't get the guys turned back to your side. And now that they have fully embraced, in my opinion, that we are going to lose a lot of guys, we're going to process the roster if we have to, and we're going to bring in this talent. It's just much more of a Saban, Kirby Smart blueprint, the kind of stuff that those guys have been doing forever. All right, so tomorrow we're going to go over the playoffs. And we're going to focus on teams 8 through 12. I should have snipped page 13. I should have snipped this with 14 guys. I might have to retake these all. I think I want 14 guys. Let me get this off of here. When Chip Kelly first came in, they asked him if he was going to call plays on the sideline or from the box. And he said he wasn't sure yet. He said there's advantages and disadvantages to both. And one of the advantages that he said, the reason that he likes calling it sometimes from the field, was he cited an instance when he was calling plays. Ryan Day was the quarterback, and noticing that after he made a play call, Ryan Day ran the play, and he got dinged a little bit. And as he was walking back to the huddle, he was kind of wincing in pain. And he said that affected the next play call. And if he was up in the booth, he never would have known that maybe he couldn't have done what he wanted him to do on that next play. And that is an example that he cited that kind of made sense to me. I hadn't really heard anybody else put it like that, which is not surprising that Chip would put it in a way, I hadn't thought about when it comes to that. But he has decided that he is going to call plays on the sideline. We've seen a lot of guys call plays on the sideline. Obviously, when the head coach calls plays, he's on the sideline. But Ryan Day called plays from the sideline for Urban Meyer. It's just always felt to me like it seems so advantageous if you are an X's and O guy to get that view from above. It feels like you're giving up an advantage. That said, I mean, if Chip Kelly feels comfortable calling it from the sideline, and that's the way he thinks it's going to be the best, I mean, hey, I'm going to take his word for it. I just can't understand why you wouldn't want to get that full view, because a sideline view is just, it's just not ideal to see everything going on. I don't know. It's an interesting topic though. And I've definitely seen some folks who are just flat out like, this is stupid. I'm not there because I feel like Chip Kelly is, I'm going to defer to him. He can tell me what's the best way for him. Right. But I just fail to see how it makes much sense. I understand the advantage that he's describing. I don't know if that outweighs the advantage of being able to get a full view of the field on every play. So let me know what you guys think. We're going to go over tomorrow. So I took all these snapshots of the playoffs. That's not the playoffs. Where are they? All right. So the final college football standings after the conference championship week for the last, since 2024. And I want to just kind of go through and maybe look from teams number 8 to 15 and just kind of see if we're using this system, what kind of teams we're talking about getting left out here. For instance, if we look at 2023 right here, and we go down to team number 12 is Oklahoma, sitting there at 10-2, LSU at 9-3. So that Oklahoma team the 12th ranked team, 10-2, beat Texas, had a bunch of big wins. Not a bunch of big wins, plenty of quality games, quality opponents. They would have been knocked out by Liberty. And I just want to kind of go through and look at a couple of these and see maybe the most egregious guys that made it and the most egregious guys that ended up missing it because of that group of 5 popping up. And the group of 5 only ranked in that top 12 a couple of times, I think, in the last 10 years. But we're going to go over it. I think it's an interesting case study, kind of give us an idea of what we're going to be looking forward to moving forward. So we'll go over that stuff tomorrow. Be sure to download the podcast in podcast form anywhere you find podcasts. You guys can catch it there. Those numbers are going up, so I appreciate whoever's listening to those things. I don't get any comments or any feedback on them, but leave a review if you can for me. You can join our new membership now on YouTube. It's got a little join button. If you're on a PC or if you're on Android, if you're on an Apple, you're going to have to get on a PC if you want to join. But we're putting out so I record the episodes the night before and then release them at 8 a.m. Members can watch them the night before. We have some members only live streams that go on and a whole lot of other stuff, member videos and member shorts. But if you want to join that, feel free to join. If you really want to join and you just can't swing it right now, send me an email at juckonbucks@gmail.com and I'll hook you up. And that'll be it for me, guys. I will talk to you soon. Juck on Bucks out.